Hey guys, tonight we're doing something a little different. You're not in your bed. You're not even inside a building. Tonight, you're lying on a damp patch of earth beneath a sagging canvas tent somewhere outside the walls of an unfamiliar city. Antioch, maybe, or Acre. The wind is picking up, and that first fat raindrop just landed squarely between your eyes. This isn't a fantasy. This is your reality on Crusade under a foreign sky and about to spend the night with 20 other men in a space built for 10. No mattress, no blankets, no silence, just the smell of iron, unwashed feet, and whatever's rotting near the food supply cart. And, well, you're probably not going to survive this night, at least not with your sanity intact. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I always love seeing how far our sleepy little history club reaches. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You can't really sleep yet. Your armor's off, thank God. But it's sitting in a sad, misshapen heap just inches from your face, and you swear it smells worse now than when it was on you. Damp leather, rusted iron, and the faint but unmistakable stench of body odor soaked deep into the fabric linings. It's all here with you, crowding your lungs as the air turns heavier by the minute. A soft plip strikes the top of the tent, then another, and suddenly you know tonight will be wet. Not drizzle wet, not cozy fireplace in the castle wet. This is medieval field campaign rain. The kind that doesn't just soak your cloak but seeps into your bones and whispers things to you in the dark. You shift on the straw. Well, straw might be generous. It's more like a mat of bruised reeds and last season's refuse, half smashed by the men who used this tent before you. A piece of it pokes your lower back. Another jabs your ankle. You're too tired to care and too awake to ignore it. Someone coughs violently to your right. You don't look. He's been doing that all day, choking like something stuck in his throat. Could be a cold. Could be worse. You tell yourself it's just a cold, because you're sleeping 2 feet from him, and denial is the only pillow you have. Then comes the shuffling. The tent flap lifts, just a little, and in crawls another body. Boots thudding on the earth, fingers groping in the dark, knocking over someone's dented helmet. Nobody speaks. Nobody asks who it is. Everyone just makes room. Because the Crusade is like that. No privacy, no choices, just damp camaraderie and the hope that someone else has a drier blanket than you. You hear the rain begin to drum. The first 5 seconds are oddly beautiful. A hollow rhythm, gentle even. If you close your eyes, it could almost be peaceful, if not for the groan of wood from the supply cart outside, or the squish of someone's foot against your leg, or the realization that your socks have already soaked through, despite not stepping outside all day. Why are they wet? You don't want to know. A soft whisper breaks the rhythm. It's in Latin, maybe, or Old French. A prayer? No, a song. Half sung, half muttered, like the singer's too tired to commit. You recognize none of the words. It's probably for the best. Another plip of rain lands, but this time inside the tent. You open your eyes. The canvas above you has darkened. Slow-growing splotches of moisture creeping outward like ink stains on parchment. You blink. One drip forms a bead, swells, trembles, then falls, right on your lip. It's cold. So cold. You wipe it away with your sleeve and realize your sleeve is no better. Wet wool is the fabric of purgatory. Rough, clingy, and perpetually damp, like it remembers every raindrop it's ever absorbed. Your stomach growls. You'd kill for something warm, but the cook fire's out. Has been for hours. The rain saw to that before it ever touched you. There might be bread left, assuming the mold hasn't colonized it. But the idea of moving right now, of stepping out into the downpour just to find it, feels about as appealing as licking the inside of a knight's gauntlet. And anyway, you're already cold. Getting colder. Somewhere outside, a horse snorts. Then louder thunder. Low and growling, like a war drum beaten by God himself. The air changes, thickens. You feel it press down on your chest like an invisible hand. And now you're not so much lying in the tent as sinking into it. Someone curses softly. You pretend you didn't hear it, because in this place, profanity is for cowards. The rest of you, those who've lasted this long, have found other ways to cope. Some pray, some hum, some stare at the canvas and wait for the storm to pass. You try to sleep, but now the edges of your blanket are wet. You tug at it, trying to bunch the fabric away from the leak, but all it does is shift the moisture to your knees. The straw beneath you starts to mush and stick. You wonder if the lice are enjoying the weather. You think about home. You think about your bed. Not even a good bed, just the one you had before all this. The mattress stuffed with rags and hay. The one that creaked every time you breathed. Feels like a dream now. Too soft. Too far away. Another drop hits your cheek. You don't wipe this one. It's too much effort. A man near the tent wall groans in his sleep, or what sounds like sleep. You listen for his breathing. It's there. Shallow but steady. You wonder if you snore. If someone else is lying awake right now, resenting the sound you make. You laugh quietly to yourself. Comes out more like a cough. The rain is louder now. A constant drumming. Your mind starts to wander. You think of silly things. Warm baths. Dry feet. Those weird sponges people use now in bathhouses. What were they made of again? Sea creatures? Something that once had eyes? Your thoughts blur. The rain does that. The man next to you shifts. His arm brushes yours. For a moment, you both freeze, then pretend it didn't happen. You close your eyes, then open them again. The tent feels smaller somehow, as if the rain is pressing it down, making the walls sag, making the air grow thicker. Like a slow, wet trap, you start to count the drips. 1, 2, 3. But then they overlap, multiply, until there's nothing to count, only sound. You're tired. You're cold. You're not alone. But that doesn't make you feel any better. Welcome to your first rainy night on Crusade. You wake up without knowing you've slept. That kind of half-conscious drifting, where the only sign of rest is the vague awareness that time passed. And your hip hurts worse than it did before. The rain hasn't stopped. If anything, it's gotten angrier. The drumbeat has become a roar, and the inside of your tent now smells like the foot of a swamp beast. Your blanket, once just damp, is fully soaked. Not, oops, I spilled water soaked, but the kind of saturation that suggests it's been dunked in a barrel and left out for the elements to do their worst. You squeeze a corner between your fingers and wring it absent-mindedly. Water trickles down your wrist, soaks into your sleeve, and settles cold beneath your armpit. Delightful. Someone sneezes nearby, loudly and wetly. Another man groans and turns over. You hear the slosh of water as his elbow knocks over a bowl. Maybe a boot, maybe both. Your eyes adjust to the dull gray of dawn, or what passes for dawn under a sky this thick with rain clouds. And that's when it hits you. Your knees are wet, not just from the air, from below. You press your palm against the straw mat and feel it. A puddle. The tent has flooded. Water is seeping in from the sides, from the floor, from somewhere, because no one remembered to dig a trench around the edges like they were supposed to. The guy who said he'd do it, he fell asleep snuggling a wineskin. Now everyone's bedding is drinking the storm with them. You sit up slowly. Your spine cracks. Everything aches. You feel older than your father, assuming he's still alive back home. Someone else tries to stand and immediately hits their head on the low tent ceiling. A curse follows. Someone laughs. The man who sneezed earlier is now coughing. And coughing. And coughing. You look over. He's pale. Lips slightly blue. That cough sounds deep. Bubonic deep. You scoot just an inch away casually, too casually. He notices but says nothing. You're not the only one who's done it. You glance toward the center of the tent, where the oldest soldier, Godwin, probably 50 but looks 90, has built a pathetic little pile of twigs and string in a dented pot. He strikes flint over it a few times. Nothing, just sparks that die instantly. He mutters something under his breath, maybe a prayer, maybe a curse. His socks steam, literally. He takes them off and wrings them out. You see water pour from them in rivulets, like the gods are mocking all your attempts to stay dry. A few younger lads glance over. One is smiling like this is all a game. You want to punch him. Instead, you feel your own feet. Your socks squelch audibly. You pull them off with two loud schlucks, then immediately regret it. The smell, the clammy sensation. You wiggle your toes in the air, and even that motion hurts. The skin between them feels raw, macerated, like it's been boiled and scraped. Trench would have helped. Someone mutters, "Yeah, so would staying in France." Another replies. No one laughs. You peek outside the tent flap. Rain pours like someone tipped over heaven. The camp beyond is a slurry of mud, manure, and discarded gear. Horses stand miserably, tails twitching. Men in half armor walk like drowned ghosts. You spot a pile of rations that's clearly been forgotten and half-eaten by crows. The birds look healthier than anyone in your unit. The only dry place you've seen lately was that weird crate covered in waxcloth, tied shut with rope so tight it must hold something sacred or terrible. You've thought about opening it. Everyone has, but no one dares. You pull back inside. Your hands shake, maybe from cold, maybe not. Your shirt clings to you in the worst places. The wool has matted to your back. Your underarms are chafed. There's an unmistakable sensation that something is growing on your skin. Some fungus or rash or divine punishment. You scratch without thinking, then immediately regret it. The itch doubles. Godwin gives up on the fire. He blows gently on the twigs one last time. They whimper back at him with a single curl of smoke, then collapse into themselves, defeated. You sigh, so does everyone else. Someone mumbles, "I miss roofs." Another, "I miss bread." A third, quietly, "I miss not hating God." No one answers that one, but several people avoid eye contact for a while. You lie back down, careful to shift onto your left side this time. Your right leg has gone numb from the dampness and pressure. The blanket now smells like sheep left out in a thunderstorm. Assuming the sheep had also rolled in dead fish beforehand. You press it to your cheek anyway. It's warmer than the air. Barely. The rain keeps falling. You wonder how long it'll last. Someone says the commander plans to move camp tomorrow. Someone else says the commander has a fever and won't be moving anything but his bowels for a week. Rumors ripple through the tent like wind. You've learned to ignore most of them. The one about Turkish ghosts circling the tents at night? Probably not true. Probably. But the one about the knight who was found frozen stiff just 10 miles north? That one might be. The man who coughed earlier coughs again. This time there's blood. It spatters onto his blanket. He wipes it away and turns his face to the tent wall. You stare at the stain. You say nothing. The rain falls louder now. You swear the water's rising. Inch by inch, like the whole camp is sinking into the earth. You imagine waking up underwater. all of you drowned in your own sweat and sickness and shared failure. You curl tighter. A voice hums from somewhere across the tent. The same song as last night. You still can't place the language. But this time you try to hum along. Not because you know the tune, but because there's nothing else left to do. And because it's slightly warmer when you're not alone. You try once again to sleep. You fail. But the attempt is strangely comforting. You wake up with your mouth open and full of the taste of wet wool. It's not your blanket. It's someone's tunic. Someone who must have rolled onto you in the night and dragged half their clothing into your face. You turn your head, slowly, carefully, as if movement itself might split you in two. Your neck cracks. Your jaw aches. Your tongue is dry, even though everything else around you is soaked. Your back is numb. Not cold. Numb. There's a difference. Cold can be fixed. Cold you can rub away. But numbness feels like someone removed your bones while you slept and replaced them with wet ash and regret. You open your eyes and immediately regret it. The inside of the tent has become a mosaic of mud and straw, fused together like medieval papier-mâché. The floor is a battlefield. Your straw bed has been trampled into something that now resembles brown mashed turnips. And the corner where you tried to sleep has merged with the corner where someone else vomited. You sniff. Yep, that's not just water. Someone groans near your feet. You can't see their face, just a muddy heel sticking out from under a twisted blanket. That blanket, you're fairly certain, used to be beige. It's now the color of despair. You sit up, slow again. Everything is stiff. You pull your cloak tighter, but it's as useful as wrapping yourself in a wet towel. Outside, the rain is softer now, more of a heavy mist than a downpour. Still, it's not stopping. The kind of persistent drizzle that makes you feel like God is just mildly disappointed in you. You fumble around near your pack. There's supposed to be food somewhere. A crust of bread you saved. Maybe a strip of jerky. Maybe something not covered in silt. Your fingers find the bread. Sort of. What you find is what was bread, now soft, bloated, and fuzzed over with a kind of greenish fur that reminds you of the moss on gravestones back home. You hesitate, not because you won't eat it. You will. You just want a moment to feel sad about it first. You tear off a piece that looks the least offensive and chew. It's flavorless, except for a faint taste of mildew. The crust collapses under your teeth like sponge cake. If sponge cake were made of grief and barley. A man nearby watches you eat. His eyes are dull, like glass marbles rolled through ash. You offer him a piece. He declines with a shake of the head. Had my fill of mold yesterday, he mutters. You nod. That's fair. The tent smells worse today. Somehow, a rich stew of wet fabric, foot rot, and something metallic you don't want to identify. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders and shuffle toward the flap. Outside, the world is mud, literal rivers of it, flowing between tents, dragging straw and waste and lost bits of armor like tributaries feeding into a larger pool of misery. You see a boot drifting downstream. No foot inside, thankfully. A group of soldiers stands near the cook fire, or what should be a cook fire. It's a pile of wet logs arranged hopefully in a circle, like they might ignite out of pity. One of the younger lads is poking at it with a stick, muttering about saints and dry kindling. You trudge over. The man next to you, Baldwin, you think, holds up something in his hand. Found bread, he says. You look. It's bread, technically. The loaf is about half a hand long, crust broken, middle green and soft. He sniffs it, shrugs, takes a bite. Don't taste like anything, he says. You nod. Good. Nothing is better than something right now. He laughs, then coughs. Then he keeps coughing. He turns away and spits. You don't ask if there's blood. You assume there is. The cook, an older man with one eye and a beard made entirely of grease, emerges from a tent with a pot of something steaming. Everyone perks up. You smell it and immediately regret having hope. It's not soup. It's mash. Crushed beans, maybe. Bits of barley. Something that used to be meat. The consistency is somewhere between paste and sorrow. But it's hot, and hot counts for a lot. You line up like everyone else. Hands out. Bowl extended. When it's your turn, the cook ladles a scoop of the mixture into your bowl, slopping some over the sides. He grunts something about ration limits. You nod and step aside. You sit on a half-dry rock, curl around your meal like a starving cat, and eat. It's warm. It's bland. It's perfect. Someone passes you a crust. It's slightly less fuzzy than yours. You eat it too. Your belly doesn't feel full, but it's no longer hollow. You count that as a win. Back in the tent, the men are starting to stir. One is brushing mud off his boots with a rock. Another is trying to dry his shirt by holding it in the direction of the fire that still doesn't exist. A third is just staring out at the sky, his lips moving in silent prayer or complaint. Could be either. You crawl back inside. Your corner hasn't dried. Neither has your blanket. You lie back anyway. The man next to you, Renaud? Bertrand? You've stopped trying to remember. Whispers, I dreamed of roast duck last night. You close your eyes. I dreamed of a chair, you say. He laughs. Luxury. Reclined. Now he's really laughing. Someone near the back mutters. Dreamed of wine. Woke up to someone's foot in my mouth. A beat. Then someone else says, was it attached? That gets a few chuckles. Laughter helps. Just a little. It doesn't dry the blanket or warm the socks, but it does something. Outside, the rain picks up again. You sigh, deeply. Somewhere a bell rings. Not a real one, someone fashioned it from a helmet and a stick. It means formation, orders, marching. Another day of wet boots and wet thoughts. You close your eyes and pretend you didn't hear it. For one more minute, you let yourself exist in this puddle of half-rest and shared soggy bread. In a world where the biggest threat, for now, is mildew and not arrows. Where no one expects you to be holy or brave or clean. Just breathing is enough. For now. You didn't think it could get worse, but then it does. The rain stops, not with a flourish, but with a slow, reluctant sputter like the clouds simply gave up. What's left behind is not sunshine, nor any miracle of drying wind. No, this damp stillness, the kind of stillness that soaks deeper than the skin, that slides into your joints and nestles there like an unwanted guest. The kind that makes every breath feel like you're inhaling your own shirt. You sit up, stretch, regret it. The canvas above your head drips in irregular intervals. 1, 2, pause, 3. You've learned to count them like a clock. You think it helps pass time. It doesn't. And now, without the distraction of pounding rain, something else makes itself known. The smell. Dear God, the smell. At first it's subtle, just a tickle in the back of your throat, a faint sourness. Then it hits you properly, like a wet sack of onions and armpits. You gag, quietly, with the dignity of a man used to suffering. It's everywhere. It is the tent, a combination of unwashed bodies, soaked wool, fermented leather, and whatever that was someone stepped in last night and tracked inside. The air is heavy, like it's been breathed too many times by the same unfortunate souls and now refuses to leave. You turn your head and see your neighbor trying to dry his boots by stuffing straw inside them. He hasn't taken them off in 3 days. You wish he wouldn't now. You wish no one would. But of course they do. One by one, soldiers peel off layers of damp clothing, releasing invisible clouds of rot and regret. Steam rises, not the romantic kind, but the biological kind. The tent begins to reek like a tannery run by drunken goats. You crack the flap open. Just a sliver. You need air. It doesn't help. The outside world is no fresher. The mud has warmed, and with it has come the fragrance of trampled waste and wet horses and something else you can't quite name. Something alive, or recently dead. You consider stepping outside anyway, but it's all the same air. There is no escape. You're breathing in everything everyone else has exhaled. For days, you are one nose in a soup of man stink. Someone nearby raises his arm and sniffs his own sleeve. "Sweet mercy," he mutters. Then, louder, "When's the next bath?" A groan from the back of the tent. "Next life." Another voice adds, "Heard the Saracens bathe once a week." Laughter. "I defect just for the soap." More laughter, followed by coughing. Always the coughing. The tent is alive with movement now. Men shifting, rolling, dressing, scratching. All of it accompanied by a chorus of groans and flatulence. The orchestra of a crusading army at rest. If you were less tired, it might be funny. But right now, it's just human. Uncomfortably human. You look down at your own tunic. It used to be brown. Or maybe green. Hard to tell now. The fabric is stiff with old sweat, and there's a patch on your shoulder that smells like cheese. You decide not to investigate. Pair of feet dangle near your face. Not close enough to be rude, just close enough to remind you they're there. They belong to a boy no older than 16. You don't know his name. No one does. Everyone calls him Mouse. Mouse is snoring. Loudly. His feet are bare, black with grime. One of his toenails is missing. You look away. Outside, someone is yelling. Orders. Morning roll call. You hear your name shouted, mispronounced as usual. You ignore it. A man limps into the tent, ducking under the flap. His armor creaks. He looks at you and sneezes. Not a little sneeze. A violent one. He wipes his nose with the back of his hand and mutters, "Ugh, tastes like mildew." You nod, understanding. He sits beside you with a squelch. "Don't suppose you've got lye soap?" You laugh. He wasn't joking. "No," you say. "Do you?" He shrugs. "Used the last of it on my shirt." You both look down at his shirt. It's not clean. He sighs. "Worth a try." He leans back and exhales. A man on the far side of the tent says, "It's the tents, you know. They trap the filth." Someone else responds, "It's the men, you idiot." Then silence. Because it's true. You could scrub the canvas with holy water and rose oil and it would still reek of wet soldier and medieval despair. There is no escape from the scent of survival. It clings. It lingers. You take a deep breath, instantly regret it, and wrap your cloak around your nose. Only 27 more days till the next supply train. Maybe they'll bring soap. Maybe, but probably not. You lie back on your straw, pull the blanket up to your ears, and pretend it's lavender. It isn't. At some point, the light begins to die. Not in the grand theatrical way of sunsets over the Holy Land, but in the quiet, sneaky way that tells you evening has slipped past unnoticed. What remains is the faint orange flicker of half-melted candles, their wicks gasping like old men too stubborn to die. The tent, once buzzing with coughs, groans, and idle complaints, softens into a hush. The kind of hush you don't trust, because it doesn't mean peace. It means exhaustion. You watch as one of the candles gutters. The flame stutters, struggles. Then it simply gives up. The room doesn't go black. Not yet, but it becomes something worse. A dimness thick with shadows that dance along the canvas. warping into strange shapes with every flicker. You know it's just firelight, you know, but the shapes don't always move like shadows should. The soldier across from you, a Saxon named Otto, who claims to have once wrestled a bear, stares into the flame like he's making a confession. The candlelight catches on the scar across his jaw, and for a moment he looks carved, not born. He says nothing. None of you do. The boy, Mouse, stirs in his sleep, whispering something that sounds like "Maman." Then he curls tighter, hugging a ragged scrap of cloth that used to be a sock. A few others shuffle into position. It's a practiced routine now. Space is precious, and so are layers. You shift toward the center, hoping someone else's body heat might edge your toes back toward the realm of the living. Someone shifts behind you, and their knee presses into your spine. You don't complain. Could be worse. It has been worse. The last candle burns low. The flame is blue at its base now, and the wax is hissing. You count the seconds. 1, 2, 3, F. Darkness. The kind that smothers. The kind that listens. You lie still. You've learned not to reach for things in the dark. Too many calloused hands, too many missteps. One time you reached for your water skin and grabbed someone's foot. The man bit you, thought you were a rat. You didn't blame him. Somewhere in the darkness, a man begins to pray in Latin, whispered, half-hummed. The cadence is comforting. You don't know the words, but the rhythm settles in your chest like a slow heartbeat. Then another sound joins it. Rain. Not the heavy, dramatic kind from before. Just a whisper on canvas, soft and even, like fingers tapping gently on the tent above your head. You sigh. You hadn't noticed it had stopped. You hadn't noticed it had started again. Time slips oddly out here. A voice near the entrance mutters, "Hope the mules are under cover." Someone replies, "Hope we are." There's a chuckle. Tired. Old. The kind that belongs to a man with more years than hope. A fart. Loud and unapologetic. Laughter. Real sudden, too loud. The kind that bursts out when you're just this side of misery. Someone throws a boot. It hits someone else. More laughter. Then silence again. You try to find a position where your shoulder doesn't ache. It's impossible. Every angle has already been claimed by discomfort. You lie flat. You curl sideways. You tuck your hands beneath your thighs for warmth. You give up. Your back itches. Probably lice. No, definitely lice. You'll scratch tomorrow. A sniffle. A cough. A sigh. The sound of breathing. So many lungs in one place. All rising. All falling. A soft tide of men stacked like books on a collapsing shelf. And underneath it all, beneath the straw, beneath the canvas, beneath the sodden boots and aching limbs, there is the faint sense of being watched. Not by an enemy, not by God, just by the night itself. You wonder if it ever gets tired. Watching, you roll over, tucking your chin to your chest, and close your eyes. You don't expect sleep, but eventually, like the candle, you surrender. Not with grace, just with silence. You don't know what time it is. There's no clock, no bell, no moonlight slicing through the canvas. Only a faint, sour warmth from someone breathing near your neck, and the scratchy feel of straw that has long given up pretending to be soft. The world outside your eyelids is ink. Then you hear it. A whistle. Not a tune. Just a single high note, sharp and wet like the cry of a bird you don't recognize. It rises again. A breath later, it drops off into silence, cut short by something muffled. Your eyes snap open. You lie still. It's the only option. Movement would announce you. And besides, your limbs have gone slack, half frozen in the cramped cocoon of sleeping bodies. The whistle wasn't loud. It didn't rouse anyone else. Or maybe it did, and they've all just learned not to respond. You hold your breath and listen. Outside, the rain drips from the eaves of the tent in steady rhythm. But that whistle didn't come from the storm. You know that. The pitch was too deliberate. Not wind, not water, person, a watcher. You shuffle ever so slightly, twisting your head to get a peek at the tent flap. It's just a shadow among shadows, fluttering gently, the ties jostled by the breeze, or by a hand, or by something else entirely. The Saxon, Otto, still lies beside you, his beard twitching as he snores. He's curled on his side now, one thick arm slung protectively over a satchel he keeps even in sleep. No one touches Otto's bag. Once, a Flemish footman tried to peek inside. Otto broke the man's pinky and didn't speak for the rest of the day. Mouse stirs, smacking his lips in his dreams. Then he whispers again, "Maman," and you feel something twist in your gut. It's easy to forget that the boy hasn't seen his mother since the ships left Sicily. She tied a ribbon around his wrist and vanished into the fog of the docks. He still wears the ribbon. It's brown now, used to be red. Another whistle, this one lower. You sit up halfway. Not enough to be seen, just enough to listen like someone who expects an answer. And you get one, a rustle, then a crack. A foot on wet grass, perhaps. Not heavy, careful, too careful. A dozen nightmares crawl into your skull at once. Assassins, thieves, demons, the sort of things the priests warn you about at Mass, with thin smiles and thicker incense. The devil moves in darkness, they say, but so do men. You lie back slowly. You've never prayed while flat on your back before, but now seems a good time to start. Blessed be Saint George. Blessed be Saint James. Blessed be Saint whoever's on night duty.
A moment passes.
Then another. Then, crack. Something brushes against the tent wall. You swear you feel it in your teeth. Like the whole fabric skin of your world just took a breath inward. A finger against canvas. No voice. No weapon. Just presence. You count the seconds, heart thudding, and that's when you realize there's no more breathing around you. No snoring. No muttering. Nothing. As if the entire tent has synchronized into a single held breath. Are they awake too? Or did it stop? Then softly, without warning, a different sound. Footsteps. Not from outside. From the inside. Your blood freezes. But it's only a shadow moving near the far end. Someone rising, maybe for a piss. Or maybe not. You can't see their face. Just a vague outline, hunched and tall, stepping over the limbs of sleepers like a ghost picking through wreckage. He walks straight to the flap and stands there, still, watching. Then, without a word, he slips out. You don't recognize him. Could be from another division. Could be a scout. Could be something else. You wait, but he doesn't come back. Instead, another whistle. Farther this time, then two more. A signal. And just like that, it stops. Rain. Straw. Breathing. Normal things again. You don't sleep. Not for a long while. When you finally do drift off, it's the uneasy half-sleep of prey animals. One ear tilted toward danger. One eye cracked open in your soul. You dream of whistles. Of a face behind the canvas. Of hands that don't cast shadows. You wake to dawn and forget the dream. But the whistle stays with you, like a note in a song you were never meant to hear. The first thing you feel isn't light. It's cold. A sneaky, wet cold that's found its way into your boots, your spine, and most insultingly, your toes. You curl them instinctively, but it's no use. The chill has taken up residence. It's squatting in your joints like an unwelcome guest with muddy feet. Then the light comes, not sunlight exactly, more like the suggestion of it. A dull gray glow bleeding through the tent seams, hinting that the world has not, in fact, ended in the night, though you're not entirely sure it hasn't. You sit up, carefully, like someone rising from the dead. Your bones crack, your knees whimper, and every muscle in your back is convinced you've been sleeping on a slope made entirely of rocks and regrets. Mouse is gone. Not gone, just not in his usual pile of blanket and dreams. His ribbon lies on the mat, wet and limp. You pick it up. Still brown. Still there. But he isn't. You scan the tent. Otto's snoring again, arms still on the satchel. The others are stirring, blinking like men who've been startled awake by the fact of another morning. Is it raining still? Someone croaks. You don't answer. You don't need to. The rhythm on the tent roof is enough. You crawl toward the flap, careful not to wake the monk with the boils. He has a habit of swinging when startled, and poke your head out. Mud. Endless, infinite, soul-blackening mud. The entire field is a stew of footprints and puddles, churned by too many boots and too few gods. The smell is immediate, a sour mix of wet wool, human filth, and the acidic tang of bodies that haven't dried properly in days. The sky hangs low, as if it too wants to go back to sleep. You find Mouse near the cook fire, if you can call it that. It's a heap of smoldering sticks under a battered canvas held up by a single spear jabbed into the earth. He's holding a bowl of something that might once have been peas. He doesn't see you. He's staring at the smoke. You walk over and sit beside him. Neither of you says anything for a while. Eventually, he speaks. I dreamed my mother came. You nod. She wasn't right. Still, you say nothing. She had no eyes, just red where they used to be. And she said something, but it came out like that whistle. You flinch a little despite yourself. She kept blowing it. Mouse murmurs, over and over, but nobody came. Then her head fell off. Silence again. A nearby knight dumps a bucket of water out of his tent and curses as it splashes back onto his leg. Someone else is coughing like they're trying to evict a demon from their lungs. You glance back toward your own tent. You can't see the flap from here, but you remember the man from last night, the way he stood still before stepping into the dark, and the way the tent had gone dead quiet, as if the whole structure were listening. You sip some of Mouse's soup. It's barely warm, tastes like ash and grass. Do you think we'll die here? He asks, in the casual tone of someone wondering if it might rain tomorrow. You shrug. Maybe. He nods, as if that answer suits him fine. A group of Spaniards trudges past, dragging a half-collapsed cart behind them. One of them has wrapped his head in a bloodied scarf. Another carries a limp chicken like a purse. You get the feeling they didn't sleep much either. The world seems made of gray and damp and the slow grinding of hope into the mud. And then you hear the whistle again. Far off. Not close, but not too far either. Mouse freezes. You both look to the trees, where the forest begins again like the edge of a forgotten dream. Then the wind shifts and the sound is gone. You hand Mouse his ribbon. He ties it back on, tighter this time. Neither of you speaks again. You don't tell him you heard it too. You don't tell him you dreamed of it. You don't tell him it wasn't just in the dream. Because some things are better left whistling in the woods. The mud always wakes before you do. Before the light, before the crows, before the stale bread and the cracked joints. It's already there. Shifting, stretching, breathing. Alive in that strange way only old, wet earth can be, as though it remembers too much. Your foot sinks into it the moment you rise. The suction is soft, but purposeful, like something doesn't want you to leave. You pull harder than you need to just to be sure. The sky hangs above like a wet sheet nailed to the heavens. No sunrise, no real morning. Just a slow brightening of the gloom. You slept badly. Or maybe you didn't sleep at all. You can't quite tell. Your dreams are tangled, and your body feels like it's been stored in a damp cellar. Mouse is already outside, chewing on something brown and joyless. He offers you a piece without looking. You take it without asking. The camp is moving slowly, like a creature half frozen. Tents flap. Men cough. Somewhere, a horse screams in protest as it's yanked from the mire. The cart beside it doesn't move. Its wheels have sunk too deep. You hear someone mutter a prayer. You recognize the cadence. It's not Latin, not Greek, just syllables, low and unsure, like a song sung backward in a dream. You don't look to see who's saying it. There's an understanding out here. Sometimes it's better not to know who's whispering to what. Otto's back, face streaked with ash. "Soup's up," he says, and no one moves. "Real soup?" Mouse asks. "Mostly." Still no one moves. You sit on a half-collapsed crate with one leg through a hole in the slats. The fire smokes more than it burns. Rain drizzles down through the crooked awning, painting tiny rings on every surface. On your shoulder, on Mouse's hair, in your bowl. The soup is hot, which makes it a luxury. It also tastes like wet rope, which makes it authentic. "Anyone seen the priest?" Otto asks. A few grunts, a shake of the head. "Heard he didn't come back last night," someone says. "Probably praying," someone else mutters. "In the woods." Another shrug. You watch the tree-line. The wind stirs it gently. Last night's whistle still rings in your memory, but you say nothing. You've noticed no one wants to talk about it. Not properly. Just enough to acknowledge it happened without agreeing what it was. Mouse turns to you. "My feet are numb." "Count your blessings," you reply. "Means you can't feel the rot yet." He laughs. You both know it isn't a joke. The knight across the way is pulling off his boot. Steam rises from the inside. So do two blackened toenails and a smell like boiled cheese and sin. He winces and throws the boot away like it bit him. You wonder how far you'd make barefoot. Probably to the tree line. Probably not back. Otto slurps the last of his soup and licks the bowl because of course he does. "March in an hour," he says. "They want us south of the river." "River's flooded," Mouse says. Otto grins. "Then I guess we're swimming." You sigh and pull your cloak tighter. The fabric clings to you like skin that's forgotten how to breathe. You stand, knees popping like firewood. Every step makes a sound like wet bread. Around you, the camp stirs. Men packing wet tents, slinging rusty swords, whispering the names of saints you've never heard of. One man kisses a bone tied around his neck. Another pours wine into his boot before putting it on. Says it keeps the demons out. You believe him, or rather, you don't, but you don't want to find out what happens if he's right. Mouse puts his ribbon on again. Tight, like armor. "Why south of the river?" you ask Otto. He shrugs. "Something about relics. Or a map. Or a dream the Duke had." "A dream?" Otto looks you dead in the eyes. "Don't you trust dreams out here?" You don't answer. Because you do. And that's the problem. You glance at the mud beneath your feet. It ripples slightly just once. You blink. Nothing. Just water and weight and the memory of a scream you didn't quite hear last night. And then the horns sound. Time to move. Again. You don't hear the footsteps at first. First, all you hear is fog. Not the wind or birdsong or the slop of boots in mud. Just the fog itself pressing in. A kind of silence so thick it starts to sound like something. A hush that vibrates faintly against your skull. Like the world is holding its breath. You're marching again. South, supposedly. No one has a proper map, just fragments drawn in charcoal on scraps of wood, and the vague promise that there's a ford ahead where the river narrows. But no one's seen it, not even Otto. Keep to the left, he tells you quietly, closer to the treeline. If anything breaks, I want you near cover. Why me? You're the only one who watches. You don't ask what he means. It's hard to see anything past 15 feet now. The mist clings low to the ground, slinking between boots and hooves and cart wheels like a snake with no spine. Sometimes you glimpse a face, mud-streaked, unshaven, bleary-eyed, and then it's gone again. Just a shape in the gloom. Just fog. The air smells like wet ash and boiled leather. Everything's damp. Your fingers prune inside your gloves. Your tongue tastes like the inside of a kettle. Behind you, Mouse mutters something under his breath. A verse? A song? You can't tell. You hear it again. That second set of footsteps. They match yours too closely. One beat behind, like an echo with breath. You stop and they stop. You move again and they resume. Soft, measured, deliberate. Mouse, you whisper. He looks up, his ribbon dark with dew. You hear that? He pauses, tilts his head, then shakes it slowly. Fog plays tricks, but you're not so sure. You listen harder. There it is again. You spin. Nothing. Just shapes. Cart creaking. A mule snorting. Someone hawking phlegm into the mud. But still, you wait for the march to continue. Then, as everyone lurches forward, you step aside. Let the rest of them pass. You crouch by the edge of the trees, dense, hunched pines that look older than memory. You listen, and there, yes, a whisper of movement, but not near you, not quite. It's further off, somewhere between the branches, soft, almost thoughtful, a shuffle, a drag, like bare feet on wet pine needles. You watch, hold your breath. A flicker, just a flicker of motion. Not a bird, not wind. Then Mouse calls out, "You coming? Or should I tell Otto you're growing roots?" You glance once more at the forest, then back to the line of figures dissolving into the mist. You take a long step back onto the path. The fog swallows your hesitation like it swallows everything else. Still, you don't shake the feeling. The next hour is worse. Every sound carries. Every twig crack echoes longer than it should. Once, you think you see a figure ahead, but when you catch up, it's only a scarecrow someone propped against a broken cart. His head is a cabbage. The smile is painted in blood. No one mentions it. Around midday, the fog thickens. You begin to lose sight of Mouse, then Otto, then even your own hands. The world is just white. White and breath and the wet slosh 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 of your feet. And behind that, yes, there it is again. The footsteps, not louder, not closer, but more real. And now a voice. It doesn't say words. It hums, low and steady, a melody that loops like a lullaby from somewhere you've never been, sung by someone you're not sure is alive. You whisper a prayer, not to a saint, not to God, but to whatever might be listening. He hears you. You feel that. The footsteps pause, then continue. You walk faster. Soon you see Mouse again, barely a silhouette in the gray. You rush toward him, breath fogging, hands cold. He turns just before you reach him. His eyes are wide. "Someone's following us," he says. You nod. He nods. No one says more, because you both know the rule. In this place, you don't talk to what walks behind you in fog. You just hope it keeps walking, and that it never decides to stop. You never thought you'd miss smoke. Not until tonight, when the cold creeps up through the soles of your feet, through the sodden wool of your hose, through the thickest blanket you could salvage from a ransacked cart. You lie curled on your side, inside a tent that leaks at every seam, and for the first time in weeks, there's no fire. There's no warmth at all. Otto wouldn't risk it. Too wet, he said flatly. Smoke won't rise. It'll hang low, choke us, give us away. You didn't ask who exactly might find you in this mire. Enemy scouts? Wolves? Something stranger? He didn't say, and you didn't want to know. So now you lie there, shivering beside Mouse and two other men whose names you never quite learned. One of them snores like a dying bellows. The other chews in his sleep, dry little smacks that sound too much like rodents gnawing through wood. The canvas is slick above you, dripping steadily. Drip, drip, drip. The rhythm drives you half mad. Every sound seems louder in the absence of crackling fire. Your breath wet and ragged. The shifting of limbs. The stiff protest of your own knees when you move. Rain hammers the tent sides in gusty bursts, like fists of a child having a nightmare. You reach for your boots. There by your side, stuffed with dry hay, or what once passed for dry. The smell that rises from them now is fungal, feral. You consider sleeping in them, but you remember the blisters from last time. How the skin peeled. How Mouse had to cut away the flap of heel with a rusted blade and wine. You lie back down. You focus on the dark. But the dark has its own ideas. You're used to strange shapes in the firelight. Flickers, faces, the occasional hallucination when your stomach's empty too long. But this dark, it's solid, heavy. It's a blanket soaked in tar, pulled over your eyes and ears and mouth. You can't even tell if your eyes are open. You blink. Once, twice. Nothing changes. You try not to move too much. The others are twitchy, and cold makes men mean. Mouse once stabbed a man for stealing a crust of bread. Not out of anger, but reflex. That was during a frost on the northern plateau. You remember the silence after. No one moved the body till sunrise. Now you sleep beside him. You hear him roll over. You hear him whisper something. You think it's your name. You turn. He's awake barely. His eyes shimmer faintly in the dark, like coins lost in mud. There's someone outside, he breathes. Your stomach knots. How do you know? I saw the silhouette. Could be a tree. Trees don't breathe. You go still. You listen. Nothing. Just the hiss of rain. The groan of wet canvas. That insistent drip. Then you hear it, just beyond the tent wall. A shifting. A weight. Not a person walking. Not a beast pacing. Just presence. You think of the relic Otto keeps around his neck. A sliver of bone from a forgotten saint. You don't know which one. The label rubbed off long ago. He says it hums when danger nears. You'd ask him to bring it here, but he sleeps 2 tents over. And no one wants to walk outside. You sit up slowly. You peek under the flap. Nothing but gray. Then a movement, just a flicker, right at the edge of vision. Gone. Mouse's hand grips your arm. Lie down, he whispers. You do. You wait. You try not to imagine claws slicing through the canvas, or something crawling in beside you, curling up like a brother, pressing its wet chest to your spine. You try not to imagine the sound of its breath. You try not to think of warmth because there isn't any, just cold, and the thing outside, and the knowledge that it doesn't need fire to keep warm. The ground is alive. That's what you think. As your boot sinks past the ankle into something that squelches with an intimacy that feels almost obscene. It's not just wet earth anymore. It's breathing, heaving, shifting under your weight like a thing with muscles and memory. Mud, yes, but more than mud. You feel it tug at you as if it remembers your name. No one told you the Holy Land would be made of this. You're not marching. Not anymore. You're waiting, and each step costs a prayer. Your companions move in a grim silence, punctuated by grunts and the occasional curse muttered in Latin, French, or something older. Otto mutters under his breath with every step, fingers brushing the pouch that holds the bone of the nameless saint. Mouse, head lowered, moves like an animal who's given up on thinking. You wish you could lift your legs higher, but the weight of your soaked garments, your supplies, the armor on your chest, it's too much, and the mud wraps around your calves like the arms of a desperate mother, begging you not to go. You glance down. Bad idea. You see nothing but brown. Endless, featureless brown. A world made of earth and water and rot. And just under the surface, something pale. It vanishes when you blink. A hand? A root? You tell yourself it doesn't matter. You keep walking. There's no choice. Behind you, the camp is dissolving in the storm. Ahead of you, the scouts promise a rise in the land, dry enough to sleep, maybe even build a fire. But that rise might as well be a myth. Like the relic, like salvation. The rain intensifies. Not a downpour, a deluge. Water slaps your face with a ferocity that feels personal. Your cloak clings to your spine. You feel the first creeping sensation of water inside your boots, crawling between your toes like tiny eels. Mouse stumbles. You hear him fall face first into the muck, and for a second no one moves, because everyone knows what comes next. He screams, not from pain, from fear. Takes 3 of you to haul him out, and when you do, his eyes are wide and he's babbling. Something about fingers, about a mouth in the mud. You slap him, gently. Otto prays louder. The others don't speak. No one wants to look at the place where Mouse fell. But you do. You always do. There's a depression there now. An imprint, not just of Mouse's body, but of something underneath, something deeper. The outline of a face, the suggestion of teeth. You blink. Gone. You walk faster. The ground rises eventually, or maybe you just grow numb enough to believe it does. Your feet still squish with every step, but the tug lessens. The arms of the earth release you, reluctantly. Night falls again. You reach the outcropping just before true dark. No fire, too damp, but there's a slope, and that means no pooling water. And that's all you can ask for tonight. You sit. The mud peels reluctantly from your knees. Your skin beneath is raw. Otto unwraps a strip of salted meat. Tastes like bark and iron. You chew without feeling. Mouse won't talk. He stares at his hands, as if they don't belong to him anymore. The others avoid his eyes. And you look back down the slope across the stretch of drowning land you just crossed. In the fading light, you see movement. Not people, not animals, just the earth heaving, like something breathing just below the surface. Still waiting, still hungry, and you realize it will take more than Mouse before this is over. You wake not because of a sound, but because of the absence of one. The rain has stopped, but not completely. A few stray drops still fall from above, fat and lazy, plopping onto the canvas with no rhythm or grace. They sound like a dying metronome. The storm is retreating, yet something remains. Something that didn't come with the rain, and isn't leaving with it either. You sit up, slowly. Your blanket is soaked. Your shoulders ache from the awkward angle you'd folded yourself into. Otto is still snoring softly next to you, mouth ajar, one hand still clutching the rosary as if it were a lifeline. Mouse is curled like a cat, face turned to the wall of the tent, not moving. You're not sure if he's asleep, or if he simply doesn't want to face the dark anymore. You stretch a hand toward the flap, and stop, because now you hear it. A voice, or not quite a voice. a thread of sound drifting through the stillness, too faint to carry meaning, too deliberate to be wind. You glance back at Otto, then at Mouse. Neither stirs, so you crawl forward. The tent flap opens with a reluctant sigh. The outside smells of churned earth, wet iron, horse dung, and something distant, something like sage. Or was that incense? There's no moon, no stars, just the color of wet wool and shadows piled atop shadows. And the whisper again comes from the edge of the camp, where the torches don't reach, past the line of tethered horses, past the armor stacked like bones beside the dying fire, somewhere between the latrines and the treeline that marks the edge of what the Crusaders call safety. You don't remember rising, but your feet are already outside the tent, soaked socks squishing in your boots. You step lightly, instinctively, the way a thief might, or a monk trying not to wake God. The whisper grows, still not words, just the suggestion of speech, like the mouth of a child practicing a language it hasn't learned yet. It coils in the wet air, wrapping around your ears like a vine. You pass Peter the cook's tent. He's snoring louder than Otto. His knife lies beside a pile of half-butchered rabbit, its eyes staring out from under the canvas. One ear twitches. You keep walking. A form hunches beside the horses. You pause until it turns out to be just a saddle draped in a cloak. Still, your breath doesn't return, because you're not sure the whisper is in front of you anymore. It's behind you now. No above. No inside. The hairs on your neck rise like a field of wheat before a coming storm. You spin, heart thudding. No one. You take a step back toward your tent. That's when you hear it again, clearer this time. Your name. Not loud. Not desperate. Not even urgent. Just familiar. As if someone has always known it and is merely reminding you it belongs to them. You freeze. You haven't heard your real name in weeks. Not since you left the port. The docks stained with seagull droppings and the blood of lambs sacrificed before departure. Everyone here calls you by your title, or your nickname, or not at all. So who could be saying it now? You don't answer, but your name is said again. Softer, closer. You turn toward the treeline, and there, just for a moment, you see something. A shape, tall, too tall, thin, too thin. Its face is a pale blur, like moonlight striking silk underwater. It does not move. It only stands, waiting. Then a flash, just for an instant, a toothless smile. Not joyful, not cruel, just knowing. You blink. It's gone. The rain begins again. Not a storm, just a drizzle. Enough to make you shiver. You retreat, fast, back to the tent. Otto hasn't moved. Mouse has curled tighter. You crawl into your blanket like a child into a womb and press your eyes shut. You try to tell yourself it was a dream. The rain disagrees, and somewhere far away, or perhaps just beneath your skin, the whisper smiles. It will come again, and next time you will answer. You wake for the third time tonight, or is it the fourth? Whatever sleep you've gathered is shredded now, torn by dreams that don't stay with you, only their shape, ragged, cold, and damp, always damp. You don't move immediately. You lie there, eyes half closed, breath shallow, listening. Otto is still beside you, arm over his face. Mouse is still curled into himself like a prayer gone unanswered. The tent, thin as it is, holds in some heat, but the dampness makes warmth feel like something borrowed. Conditional. Then you hear it. A soft scrape. Not like before. Not a voice. Not a whisper. This is fabric. You know the sound well. You've heard it for weeks now. The way wool drags across wood. The soft hiss of linen sliding over straw. It's the sound a soldier makes when shifting beneath a cloak. It's the sound you make every night when you toss and turn. But you're not moving, and neither is anyone else. Yet something in the far corner of the tent has moved. Just a little. Enough for you to hear it. Enough for you to notice. Your eyes drift toward that corner. The canvas is darker there, where the oil lamp doesn't reach. A lump lies beneath the cloak, one of the spare ones. Or maybe not. You don't remember it being there before. You stare at it. It does not move again. You tell yourself it's just folded oddly. Maybe Otto threw it there in his half-wakeful state. Maybe someone tossed it in while you were outside, chasing shadows and whispers. That's all it is. Pile of cloth. But you're still watching it. Because you saw it. It moved. Not much. Just a shift. Like something settling beneath it. Or stretching. You sit up. Otto groans in protest, turning away from you. You crawl toward the corner slowly, quietly, the wet fabric beneath your knees sighs with every inch. You feel foolish, like a child investigating a lump beneath the blanket, convinced it's a monster. But you can't stop. The cloak lies still now. It's a soldier's cloak. Heavy. Standard issue. The kind lined with sheepskin, meant for marches through mountain passes or sleepless nights on watch. It smells of mildew and salt and the iron tang of dried blood. You reach out. You hesitate. The air around it feels wrong. Not cold. Not hot. Just thick. Pressed in. Like breathing through wet wool. You touch it, and it collapses. Empty. Just a pile of cloth after all. You exhale finally. Then your fingers brush something inside. You freeze. Not because of the texture, but because of the warmth. There's something beneath the cloak. And it's warm. Not hot like iron by fire. Not even like a living hand. Just recently occupied. As if someone had been there. Just now. But there's no one. No imprint. No boots. No armor clank. No open tent flap. Just the warmth and that smell again, smoke and rosemary and something else you can't name. You pull the cloak away fully. Nothing. Just the ground beneath. Still damp from earlier. No footprints. No mark. No explanation. You sit back on your heels. Something is wrong. You look around the tent. Nothing's been moved. The others are sleeping or pretending. But you can't help feeling like the tent is different now. Like the air inside it has changed direction. It presses in on your back. As if the walls have leaned slightly inward when you weren't watching. You fold the cloak, slowly, carefully. But when you move it, you hear something jingle. You reach into its folds and pull out a small pouch, tied shut with red thread. Old, greasy. You don't recognize it. You didn't put it there. Neither did Otto. He barely ties his own boots. Mouse, maybe. He has that look. The kind of boy who hoards charms and keeps coins from dead men. But this doesn't feel like his either. You turn it in your hand. It doesn't feel like money. Or stones. Or food. You untie the thread. Inside there's a tuft of hair. Black, curled, still oily. And a sliver of something sharp. Bone? Nail? Tooth? And something else. A piece of parchment. You don't want to open it. But your fingers do. Inside is a single word. Your name. Written in a hand you don't recognize. But it knows you. Your chest tightens. The candle flickers. You look toward the tent flap. It hasn't moved. But the outside feels closer. You clutch the pouch and back away. Otto is snoring again. Mouse, as always, says nothing. You crawl back to your blanket. You tuck the pouch beneath your jerkin, close to your skin. It's cold now, and still damp. And the cloak? You left it in the corner. But when you glance over your shoulder, it's gone. You never fell asleep again. Not properly. You drifted, maybe, for minutes at a time, slipping under like a stone through murky water. But every time you felt yourself begin to let go, something tugged you back. A sigh, a creak, a change in the air pressure. You start to realize the tent is no longer just a tent. It breathes. It exhales, slow and damp, pressing its breath against your neck. You feel it ripple through the canvas walls, soft, barely there, like skin stretched over a ribcage. You sit up again, not because you want to, but because you must. There's a weight on your chest, not fear exactly, but expectation. As if something is waiting for you to notice it. Otto mumbles in his sleep. Mouse doesn't stir. Rain taps faintly overhead. A weak, weary rhythm, like a drummer who's lost interest in the beat. And then the ropes creak. You know that sound too well. The tense ropes tighten in the wind. But there is no wind tonight. Just mist. Just silence. Yet now they groan like something heavy is pulling on them. Not all at once. One by one. A slow tension, like fingers testing the tautness of thread before cutting it. You reach for your cloak this time, the one you've had since the first week of the campaign. It's damp but familiar. You wrap it around yourself like armor. The corners of the tent seem farther away now. The light from your single lamp can't quite reach them anymore. You tell yourself it's the fog, or the angle, or your eyes playing tricks. But you know, the tent is breathing in. It's inhaling. You crawl to the flap and undo the tie. Carefully, slowly. Outside, the world is gray. Not black, not dark, just gray. Fog has swallowed the camp. Not mist, not smoke. Something denser, wetter, heavier. You can't see 5 paces ahead. The fires are gone. No shouts, no metal, no horses, no sign of life. You whisper, Otto, but you don't turn. You whisper again, Mouse. Still you stare outward, because there's something in the fog. A shape, not tall, not short, still. It stands just outside the reach of your sight, like a statue left behind by some ancient god who lost interest in its followers. You blink. It doesn't. You rub your eyes. It remains. Just a little closer now. You let the flap fall shut. You don't tie it. You back away from the entrance and sit with your knees pulled to your chest. The lamp flickers. A drop of wax hisses as it hits the ground. Then comes the sound. A low groan, not human. Not entirely. It's the tent again. It shifts. You feel it in your spine before your ears catch it. The canvas stretching like lungs filled to their limit. And then deflating. A slow, soft exhale. Right behind you. You turn fast. No one. But the canvas behind you is warm to the touch. Warmer than it should be. Warmer than any tent wall ever is on a night like this. You pull your hand away. Your palm smells faintly of myrrh. And something metallic. Blood? No. Ink. You wipe it on your jerkin. You glance at Otto again. Still asleep. Still useless. Mouse, you now notice, is watching you. Eyes open. Silent. You want to speak, but his look stops you. He nods just once, toward the back wall of the tent. Then he closes his eyes. He's not asleep. He's pretending. You don't know whether to feel comforted or horrified. You look again at the back wall. It bulges inward, ever so slightly. Breathing in again. It wants something, or someone, and you're not sure if it already has it. You whisper your own name, just to remind yourself that you're still here. Still you. But when you say it, the tent exhales again, as if it recognizes it, as if it agrees. You try not to move. You try not to breathe too loudly, lest the tent mistake it for an answer. But your eyes refuse to shut again. Instead, they trace the seams of the canvas above your head, following the crooked lines as though they might spell something out. Some hidden message stitched by trembling hands. The lamp guttered out 10 minutes ago, maybe 15. It's impossible to tell anymore. And that silence is no longer just quiet. It's deliberate, watchful, as if the night itself has cupped the camp in its palms and is holding its breath to see what you'll do next. Mouse hasn't moved, not since the nod. You've watched his chest rise and fall too steadily to believe he's truly asleep. He's in that middle state, too afraid to move, too afraid to stop pretending. Like a child who thinks the monster only notices motion. You begin to think the tent really might be alive. Or worse, not alive, but haunted by something that once was. And that's when you hear the rattle. Not outside, not from another tent, from underneath. Soft at first, like something shifting just below the surface of packed earth. You brace your hands on the blanket, your fingers brushing against the wooden floorboard at the edge of your bedding. There's a thin crack in the plank, and something is pushing through it. You lean down slowly, too slowly, as if time is now molasses. The darkness under the floor is deep, somehow darker than the night itself. But your eyes adjust and you see it. White, chalk white, rounded, teeth. Just 2 at first, then 3 peeking up through the crack like seeds germinating in reverse, rising from the soil, clean and dry. Human teeth. You don't scream. You can't. Your breath lodges itself in your throat like a stone. You reach for the nearest object. A spoon, a broken quill, anything. But your hands are clumsy now, half asleep, half frozen. Then you remember something. The old story Otto told back near Acre. When the spirits of the hills wouldn't let the army pass until they were fed a pilgrim's mouth. You'd laughed at the time, called it superstition, blood magic for fleas and fools. But now, right now, you're thinking about that story very differently. Because those teeth, they're not falling out of the earth. They're being offered, like a tithe. Mouse's voice, dry as cloth, rasps behind you. They do that, he says. You turn. He's sitting up now, legs crossed, eyes still half-lidded. What? You whisper. The teeth, he says. They come when it rains too long. You want to ask how he knows. You want to ask what they mean. But he just reaches into his own boot, pulls out a small cloth bag, and tosses it to you. Jingles. Softly. You open it. Teeth. Too many. None matching. One still has the root intact. Where did you? They grow, Mouse says. Only at night. Only when it's quiet. You stare at the crack again. Now 6 teeth. 7. You step away. But the tent doesn't let you move far. Your foot sinks into the ground. Not mud, not water. Something softer, like flesh pretending to be soil. You yank your foot out and crawl backward into Otto's side. He stirs, groans. You wish he'd wake up, but he won't. They never do, says a voice in your head that you're not sure is yours. Not until the mouth finishes forming. You don't want to look again, but you do. And now there's not just teeth. There's a jaw. Not full, not whole, just the top half. A row of yellowing bone, slick with nothing, rising from between the floorboards like it's been summoned from memory. The smell hits you, not rot, something worse, like prayer smoke mixed with rainwater and the faintest hint of old wine spilled in a church pew. Mouse is muttering now, not Latin, not anything you understand, but it feels right, feels necessary. You mimic the rhythm, hoping it helps. The tent seems to listen. The jaw pauses, and then it sinks. Slowly, gently, back into the earth. Gone. You and Mouse sit in silence. Then he reaches for the bag you're still holding, takes it from your hand, ties the drawstring tight. "It'll be back," he says, "but not tonight." And then he lies down, just like that, as if this is normal, as if this is just another thing soldiers endure between battles and bad bread. You stare at the floor. The crack is empty, but you know it isn't. It's waiting, just like the tent, just like the fog, just like everything else on this cursed campaign. You lie down eventually. You don't sleep, but you pretend. And for now, that's enough.
You don't ask questions anymore. Not about the teeth. Not about Mouse. Not about the strange groaning you heard just before dawn, rising and falling like breath caught in a bellows. Instead, you go through the motions. Scrape your bowl clean. Fold your blanket twice. Shake out your boots for scorpions that might not even exist. Anything to appear normal. But today, something's different. The rain has stopped, yet no one speaks of it. As if silence were an offering to the sky, in case it decides to return what it took. You step outside the tent and look upward, not at the heavens, but at it. The banner, the one tied to the central post of the camp, rising above the command tent like a drowned flag gasping for breath. Shouldn't still be here. Last week, it was torn clean in two by a sudden gust. You saw it yourself, frayed, snapped down the middle, the cloth carried off into the hills. Brother Lothar swore it was an omen, but now it's back, whole, taut, waving gently. You walk toward it. Nobody else seems to notice. The others are busy oiling blades, brushing horsehair, praying, pretending, but not you, not now, because you can hear it. A soft, almost feminine whisper. Not words, not quite, but syllables just barely brushing against your skull, like someone murmuring through cloth behind your ear. You take another step. The air here feels heavier, not humid, dense, like the moment before thunder claps, when your lungs forget how much they weigh. Mouse appears beside you. You didn't hear him approach. "Don't look too long," he says. You glance sideways. "Why not?" He doesn't answer. Instead, he points at the edge of the banner. "There," he whispers. "That's where it starts." You squint. First, it looks like a shadow, a crease in the fabric. But then it moves, ever so slightly. A mouth. No, not quite. An opening. A gap where threads shouldn't separate. Something peeking through. Not flesh, not eye, not smoke. Something. "I watched it speak to Otto last summer," Mouse says quietly. "He stood there for hours. Didn't blink. Didn't eat. Didn't even piss." "What did it say to him?" Mouse shakes his head. "Dunno." But the next morning, he buried his rosary in the fire pit and started sewing scraps of meat into his cloak. You look back at the banner. It shifts again. That whispering still there, growing louder now. You strain to catch a single word. Just one. And there it is. "Come." You freeze. It didn't sound threatening. It sounded lonely, like something that's been waiting too long to be remembered. Mouse tugs at your sleeve. Step back. You hesitate. The banner flutters, even without wind. You see the stitches now. Tiny, almost imperceptible. Red thread woven through black, crisscrossing symbols older than Latin. You blink. There are faces in the folds, or illusions of faces. Men and women and children, mouths open in frozen silence, their expressions trapped in mid-scream, mid-prayer, mid-question. The whispers multiply. You hear your name, not shouted, not begged, welcomed. You step forward again. "Back!" Mouse hisses. You obey, and the banner stills, like a pond undisturbed. The air lightens. The pressure lifts. Mouse spits on the ground. They say it's stitched from crusaders who never made it past Antioch, he says almost casually. Every thread a vow that went unfulfilled. Every knot a secret kept too long. You look again. It's just a banner now. Fabric, wood, wind, but you feel it. Watching, waiting, whispering, still whispering, but only for you now. Only when you're close. And deep down under your ribs, that if you ever answer it, truly answer it, you'll be stitched in next. Tonight, it's your turn for the night watch. You tried to trade with Mouse, even offered him your last dried fig. But he refused with a grunt and a half smile. Said he didn't like the way the dark smelled lately. So now you're here, alone. The rain has held off for 2 nights straight, but the ground is still damp, breathing fog with every footstep. Your boots squelch softly as you move between tents, careful not to wake the men who sleep like stones or corpses. You're given a lantern, of course, not a torch. Open flames are dangerous near cloth and oil. Instead, they hand you an iron lantern with a strange bulb of yellowed glass. There's no wick, no oil, no heat, but it glows, hums faintly, not with noise exactly, but with pressure. You feel it in your fingertips as you carry it, like the pull of deep water or the silent weight of someone staring at your back. You don't ask. You've learned not to ask. The lantern was given to you by one of the quartermasters with no name, just a twisted finger and an eye that never blinks. He handed it over without a word and vanished before you could think to protest. And now it's just you, the tents, and this light. It's not warm, not cold either. The best way to describe it is hungry. It spills out of the iron mouth of the lantern in pale, shimmering waves, but instead of chasing shadows away, it drags them with it. You aim it at a tree. You see bark, sure, but also something moving inside the tree, pulsing, like veins in wood, like breath trapped beneath grain. You turn away quickly. You shine it on a fellow soldier's sleeping face. He looks younger than you remember, childlike, but his mouth is open, lips moving in sleep. You lean in. He's whispering. In Greek. He doesn't speak Greek. You keep walking. The mist parts wherever you go, not because the light burns it away, but because it listens, responds. It curls backward like something recoiling from an old memory. Then the lantern flickers, just once, then again, and the humming changes. The pressure in your hand sharpens. Not pain, but something close, like the sensation of biting into something soft and finding bone. You look down. Inside the lantern, where there should be flame or coals, there's a tiny shape, moving. It's not a bug. It's a mouth, no bigger than a coin, lips parting slowly, mouthing words without sound. You stare, fascinated, horrified, certain that if you could just read lips. Then the lantern jerks, out of your hand, but it doesn't fall. It hovers, drifting slowly forward like a fish pulling against a line. You follow. Of course you do. It leads you past the food tent, past the horses, past the edge of camp, to a grove of dead trees, their bark split like burned flesh, their branches hanging down like skeletal arms. And there, in the center, sits a circle of stones. You've never seen this place before. The lantern stops. It hangs in the air like it's caught in thought. You step forward, then freeze. Because in the circle, arranged in a careful spiral, are lanterns. Dozens of them, all glowing, all watching, and every single one contains a mouth. Some whispering, some silent, some open wide in an eternal scream that makes your chest ache just to look at them. Your lantern joins the spiral. It nestles into place as though it's always belonged there. And just like that, the glow leaves your hands. The forest grows darker, heavier. You want to scream. You want to run. But neither feels possible. Then behind you, a voice, hoarse, dry, almost forgotten. You carried it well, it says. You turn. No one is there, only the wind, and the faint sound of breathing that doesn't belong to you. You walk back to camp without light, but the lantern has done its job. You saw what you weren't meant to see. You felt what no soldier should feel. And now you carry something else with you, a memory, or perhaps a mouth of your own. It begins just after third watch, when the moon is at its smallest and even the dogs refuse to bark. You're lying on your back in the tent, staring at the ceiling. The canvas above you, patched and yellowed with age, is familiar by now. Every thread, every mold stain, every squirming shape that might be a shadow or might be something else. Sleep won't come, not after the lantern. You haven't spoken of it. Not to Mouse, not to the quartermaster with the glass eye, not even to yourself. But your hands still remember the weight, the pull, the whisper. You turn your head, just enough to hear the other men breathing, slow, uneven, too heavy for true rest. You wonder if they're dreaming. You hope they are. You hope they stay there, locked in soft visions of women and fields and wine, because something is about to start. You hear it before you feel it. Not the patter of rain, but a tapping. Light, sharp, not on the tent, but on you, on your thoughts, on the inside of your ears. You sit up slowly, and then you smell it. It should be petrichor, wet soil, leaves, the clean rot of nature. But it's not. It smells of ink, old ink, bitter and metallic, like blood soaked into parchment. You crawl to the flap of the tent, lifting it with a trembling hand. And there it is, the rain, falling in sheets, but not clear, not watery, black. Each drop hits the earth with a slap, leaving no puddle, only stains. The grass hisses when touched. The soil darkens as though it remembers something it wants to forget. You extend your hand. One drop lands on your skin. It doesn't run. It sits, heavy, thinking. Then it begins to move, not down your wrist, but inward, as though searching for a vein. You yank your hand back, wiping it on your cloak, but the mark remains. A circle, no larger than a coin, perfect, unmoving. Behind you, one of the men stirs, then another. The air grows tighter. The fabric of the tent seems to breathe, pulsing with something not quite wind. You whisper a warning, a name, but the men do not rise. Their eyes open, but there is no light in them. And then, from outside, drip, drip, tap. Something is walking between the tents. Not a person. Too slow, too tall. You press your ear to the canvas and listen. The footfalls are soft, but the rain around them is silent. Wherever it steps, the black drops pause in midair, hovering as if waiting for permission. You want to scream. You don't. Instead, you step out. Why? You'll ask yourself that for years if you survive the month. Maybe you hope to catch it. Maybe you just didn't want it behind you anymore. You emerge into the rain, and it greets you. The drops gather around your shoulders like a cloak. They pat your hair with the softness of lullabies, then slide across your skin as if testing its texture. Your eyes sting, but you blink and see. There, just beyond the fireless circle of camp, is a figure. Not walking, floating. It has no face, only a long shroud of wet cloth that flows upward like smoke, not downward like fabric should. Beneath it, where feet should be, are hands. So many hands. Some small, childlike. Some clawed. Some still clutching weapons long rusted away. The creature turns, though it has no head, and gestures with a dripping sleeve. Behind it, dozens of others begin to rise from the mud. One by one, they unfurl like forgotten scrolls. They are not soldiers, not men. They are the memories of the dead who never got to sleep. those who drowned in their tents, those who bled in silence, those who prayed in the wrong language. The rain has brought them back, not for vengeance, but for company. You are one of them now, they seem to say. You've slept too little, you've seen too much, and the black rain, well, it doesn't cleanse. It binds. You back away step by step until you are inside your tent again. You lower the flap. The sound returns. Normal rain. Breathing. Snoring. Mouse shifts beside you, muttering something about goats. But the mark on your palm is still there, and it itches. You wake with mud in your mouth. Not the kind you can spit out, but the kind that clings to your tongue like a second skin. You cough. Once. Twice. It tastes like iron and roots and something older than language. Mouse is gone. His bedroll is empty, and there's a slow drip coming from the ceiling of the tent. Inside, not out. You sit up. The mark on your palm still pulses, warm and faintly twitching like a heartbeat lodged too shallow. Then you hear it again. Knock, knock. Not on wood, not on canvas, but on something soft, wet, like the sound of a hand slapping raw meat. You freeze. Knock, knock. Closer this time. And then a voice, low, croaking, kind. Brother, it says, may I come in? You don't answer. You're not supposed to answer things that knock at dawn. You've heard the stories. So many of them. The ones your mother told when the sky turned the color of bruises. The ones the old soldier whispered the night he bled out in the straw, fingers twitching as if still holding his rosary. But the voice continues. I've come a long way to see you, brother. Walked through 7 dead rivers and a forest that burns upside down. You left your prayer half finished. I thought you might need help. Remembering. Sounds gentle, helpful even. You clutch your palm. I brought your friend. The voice adds. He asked for a goat. Isn't that funny? Your breath catches. Mouse. You reach for your dagger, but the leather sheath is soaked. Rotten. Crumbles in your hands. And then, without waiting, the flap lifts. He's too tall. That's the first thing your mind registers. The second, he's dressed like a monk. Robes dark with rain. Skin the color of ash under firelight. His face is hidden beneath a cowl stitched with symbols that rearrange themselves when you blink. He bends, folding not like a man but like cloth, and steps into your tent. The air goes cold, thick. You can taste it. Salt, mold, and something like violets crushed beneath a boot. I'm Brother Rain, he says, and though his voice is barely a whisper, it fills the space like thunder underwater. You try to speak, but your mouth is full of mud again. He crouches before you, hands resting delicately on his knees. I'm here to teach you how to sleep through the storm, he says. Most don't. Most scream. He reaches out, palm up. Let me show you. You shake your head, but your fingers move without permission. Touch his, and you are somewhere else. You're in a monastery now, but not one you've ever seen. The walls are breathing. The candles flicker with blue fire, and the monks don't chant. They hum like hives. Brother Rain walks beside you, explaining things in a calm voice. Here is the room of forgotten dreams. We keep them bottled. Don't touch. Here is the bed of the weeping night, still warm after 800 years. And here, he says, opening a door made of stitched-together maps, is the sleep you left behind. Inside is your own cot, back home, the one in your mother's loft, with the creaky floorboards and the smell of old wool and bread crusts. There's a figure lying in it. You step closer. It's you, asleep, peaceful, breathing slowly. Would you like to return? Brother Rain asks. You hesitate, because in this dream, in this monastery, everything feels like sleep, but not rest. I don't know. You whisper. That's fine, he says. You don't have to decide yet. Most never do. And he leads you back through the humming halls, past doors labeled with names you almost remember, and floors made of teeth, and chandeliers that drip ink instead of wax. Finally, you return to your tent. You open your eyes. The still night. Mouse is back, snoring, one hand tucked beneath his cheek. Your dagger is whole again, but the flap of the tent is open, and outside the rain has stopped. Not a drop on the ground, but your bedroll is soaked with black water. You look at your hand. The mark is gone, but your mouth tastes like violets. You wake to silence, not the quiet of rest or the hush that follows prayer. No, this is a silence so complete, so hollow, it feels like the world forgot to breathe. Mouse is still snoring, but there's something wrong with the rhythm, like his lungs are mimicking sleep rather than doing it. You nudge him. He doesn't stir. You lean over and watch his chest. Down. But his eyelids flutter, twitching in a pattern you've only seen once. When a dying soldier dreamed of drowning, whispering about a river that ran uphill and pulled souls back in, you crawl out of the tent. The sky is that peculiar gray-blue that means dawn has arrived but hasn't decided whether to stay. But it isn't the light that catches your attention. It's the ground. It's smooth, untouched, 20 tents, dozens of men, and not a single footprint in the mud. Not one boot mark, not one drag from a cloak or spear. Nothing. It's as though the entire camp levitated overnight. You crouch and press your palm to the earth. It's dry. Not the kind of dry that follows sunshine. There's been no sun for days, but the brittle, false dryness of something recently washed clean, like a body scrubbed before burial. You stand and walk the camp's perimeter. Still nothing. No birds. No firewood. No cooking pots. Just tents. And then you hear a giggle. A child's giggle. Light, distant. You turn. It came from one of the smaller tents. The one where young Tomas had bedded down. The boy squire who still slept with a woolen rabbit stitched by his mother. You move toward it. Tomas! You call quietly. You all right? The tent flap opens on its own. Inside, the boy isn't there. Instead, the tent is filled with sand. Dunes of it, reaching all the way up the canvas, spilling slightly from the opening like water from an overfilled cup. You step back. That giggle again. This time closer. You whirl around. Nothing. But now you see it. The shapes. Near the cook-fire pit, 10 meters away, are 3 shadows. But no people. Just the shadows. They move like soldiers. Upright, disciplined, quiet. One bends down and pokes at the non-existent fire with a stick that isn't there. Another sips from an invisible cup. The third looks directly at you and waves. You stare. The shadow cocks its head. The shoulders tremble like it's laughing. Then all 3 vanish. No fanfare. Just gone. You bolt back to Mouse. He's sitting upright now, staring at the center pole of the tent. His eyes are open, but the pupils are gone. Just white. Mouse? You whisper, heart pounding. He blinks. The color returns. But when he speaks, it isn't his voice. They never left, he says. They just walked quieter than the mud could hear. You grab his shoulder. He shakes his head, as if waking from something. What? He says groggily. Did we eat yet? You don't answer. Instead, you step outside again. And now there are footprints. Hundreds. Circling your tent only. Pressed deep. As if something had been walking around it all night. Watching. Waiting. But never stepping inside. Not yet. You didn't sleep again, not after that. You stayed up, seated cross-legged just inside the tent. Blade across your lap, eyes flicking toward every rustle of the wind. Mouse, of course, is snoring again, as if his body has found a rhythm to ignore whatever had used his tongue hours earlier. Or maybe it just left him when dawn approached, like a parasite that only thrives in darkness. But you feel awake in a way that is wrong, over alert, like you're not just guarding against danger, but waiting for it, like it promised to come back. And then the sun rises. It's barely light, still cold, but rays of gold push between the canvas seams, and for a moment, you imagine the weight in your chest might lift. You step out of the tent. The world has color again. The mud glistens with the morning dew, and you almost convince yourself the night was a dream. The sand in Tomas's tent? Maybe a prank. The voices? A fever. The shadow men? Just moonlight and your nerves. That's when you hear it. A faint clink, like metal brushing metal, coming from the center of camp. You walk slowly, past the tent with the broken pole still collapsed, past where the fire pit used to be, now just a ring of dry stone. And then you see it, a full suit of plate armor, standing upright in the open. No one inside. You stop, because it's not yours. Not any of yours. No one in your band wears plate like that. Not here, not in the mud and rain of these godforsaken roads. It's gleaming, untouched by rust, despite the damp. The breastplate bears no emblem, no crest, just polished steel unmarked. Your breath fogs the air as you approach. The closer you get, the stranger it seems. The standing without support, no rack, no post, feet flat on the earth, hands resting at its sides, helmet sealed, but the visor is open. You peer in. Darkness. Then the whispering begins. Faint. You take a step back. It's not whispering to you, not exactly. It's whispering about you. He saw the sand. It hisses. He watched the footprints fade. He knows the camp forgets. You blink. The helmet hasn't moved. Neither have the arms. But the voice slithers out from within, like breath escaping a long-sealed tomb. You glance around. No one else has noticed. 20 men, all walking, dressing, boiling water for gruel, and none of them reacting. The armor speaks again. He listens too closely. He sees too much. He will be taken last. You reach for your blade, and that's when the helmet turns. Not much, just a tilt, as if acknowledging your fear. You pull the sword from its scabbard. Mouse, now fully dressed, jogs up beside you. You all right? He asks. You glance at him, back to the armor. It's gone. No sound, no shimmer, just gone. Mouse raises an eyebrow. You're pale as St. John's bones, mate. You shake your head, trying to find words that won't sound insane. But then Mouse leans closer and mutters, "You heard it too, didn't you?" You freeze. He stares into the spot where the armor stood. "I didn't dream it," he says, and then walks away like nothing happened. You look down. Where the armor stood, there's a single line of dry earth, baked hard in the shape of a boot print. Just one, but pressed far too deep, like it wasn't walking. It arrived, and might return.
It's dusk again, and the fog returns, rolling in low, slow, slinking between the tents like something alive. You're stirring the last of the barley gruel in a battered pot, watching it hiss against the hot stones. Mouse is chewing jerky beside you, staring into nothing. Ever since the whispering armor vanished, he hasn't said much, but he hasn't left your side either. You suppose that's something. Then the horn sounds. 3 short blasts. Visitor. It's rare. No one comes to you. Not willingly. Not out here. The others gather instinctively. Soldiers circling the fire, hands twitching toward blades and spears. You follow their gaze, past the far edge of the camp, where the path from the southern hill winds through trees. And there he is, pilgrim, shrouded in gray, barefoot, cloak soaked in rain and filth, dragging behind him like a shadow made of rags. He walks slowly, not limping, not staggering, just steady, like he doesn't feel the weight of the mud, or the weight of being seen, because no one moves, no one calls out. They watch, but none speak, and the silence is deep, not fearful, not reverent, something worse, something like recognition. You step forward. "Where's he from?" you whisper. No one answers. He reaches the edge of the firelight, stops. The hood falls back just a little, enough to reveal nothing, not a face, not eyes. Where the sockets should be, there's only darkness. Not blood, not torn flesh, just smooth, shadowed skin, as if his face had never been carved. And yet you feel him looking at you. "Pilgrim," says the captain at last, voice dull, like reading from memory. "You're welcome in the camp. For a night." The man nods, just once. Then he kneels, not beside the fire, not near food or warmth. He kneels just at the edge of the tents, facing nothing, like he's praying. But his lips don't move. The captain turns away. The others too. Just like that, they go back to their soup, to their games, to their boots and blades, and talking of nothing. You don't. You stare. And as the sky darkens, the fog deepens. Mouse nudges your shoulder. "Don't," he mutters. "Don't what?" "Don't look." He notices. You tear your eyes away, but you feel it. Not a gaze. A pull, like something reaching out across the firelight and latching onto your thoughts. When you sleep that night, you dream of cathedrals built underground, filled with faceless monks who pray to silence. And when they open their mouths, black moths pour out. You wake choking. The tent is cold. Too cold. Mouse is already sitting up. "He's gone," he says. You stumble outside. And he's right. The pilgrim is nowhere to be seen. No footprints. No sign. Except a perfect ring of dry ground where he knelt. Bone white. Unnatural. Like the earth rejected him. One soldier, a boy barely grown, asks if anyone else saw the stranger. The captain stares at him blankly. "What stranger?" You and Mouse lock eyes, and you both understand. You're not part of the forgetting. Not anymore. Whatever's happening here, it wants some to remember. And you're one of them. It starts with a bribe, as most dangerous things do. One of the older knights, Sir Almeric, thick-browed and half-drunk, offers you a silver brooch in exchange for firewood. Not gold, not coin, a brooch. Strange thing, 3 snakes twisted around a sun. You've never seen the design before, and neither has Mouse. But you take it. He says he found it near a crumbled chapel up the western slope. Said he wanted nothing to do with it. Said it made his skin itch. You toss it into your satchel and forget it for the moment. That night, the wind howls like a hungry dog, and the rain returns, sharp and unrelenting. You and Mouse huddle inside your tent, legs tucked up, a sodden blanket over your heads like children hiding from the storm. The fire won't catch. The flint is damp. The lantern oil is gone. You dig into your pack for anything dry and find the brooch. It's warm, not just warm, glowing faintly, like it remembers sunlight. Mouse leans over. "Don't," he says, but you're already moving. You twist the back. Something clicks. The brooch splits open, and inside is a stub of wax. Candle, thin, yellowish. No wick, only a vein of black threading through its center. You hold it up. Somewhere outside, thunder snarls. Then, despite no spark, no flame, it lights. But it doesn't glow outward. It draws. Darkness deepens around the flame. Mouse stares. What kind of? And then the tent changes. No wind, no rain, just silence. You're sitting in your tent, but it's not your tent anymore. Everything is older. The leather is new, the stitching fresh. The bedrolls are rolled neatly and used. And you're not alone. A soldier, no, a boy barely 15, kneels in the same spot you're sitting. His face is familiar. It's you, but younger, before the march, before the siege, before the plague pits and the screaming monks and the night the stars blinked out. He's crying, quietly, holding a letter. You try to speak, but nothing comes out. The candle draws deeper. The tent flickers again. Now another memory, a different tent. You see Mouse, just a year ago, whole and loud and laughing, before he stopped trusting sleep. He's teaching a rat to balance on his finger. You'd forgotten that. The candle flares once more. Another flicker. A battlefield. Mud. Fire. Screams. You're standing over a friend, blade in hand, shouting for mercy that won't come. But this time you see it all from above. Detached. You see your own face. Rage twisted with something worse. Resolve. You fall backward in the present. The candle keeps burning. Backwards. Drawing out each fragment of memory like silk from a wound. Mouse slaps it from your hand. It lands on the ground, flame still inverted, pulling the shadows of the tent inward like breath before a scream. Then it sputters and dies. You're back, soaking wet, hands shaking. Mouse is pale. We don't burn things like that, he says. You nod slowly, but the images remain, too vivid, too near, and you wonder, what happens if you light it again? If you let it burn all the way down? The next morning, Sir Almeric is gone. No one remembers him, except you and Mouse. In his place, there's a new man with the same armor, same tabard, but a different face. No one seems to notice the difference. They call him Almeric. They laugh at his jokes. They trust his sword. Only you and Mouse look at each other across the campfire, mouths dry, eyes wide. The candle didn't just show the past, changed it, and now someone else wears a name that doesn't belong to them. You clutch your satchel tightly. The brooch is back inside, still warm. It wasn't supposed to be a dangerous errand, just a scouting trip. 3 riders, Mouse among them, sent out past the edge of the dunes to find an old watering hole marked on a battered Crusader map. A Roman spring, the map claimed, etched beside a faint drawing of a bull's head, the kind of place desperate men whisper about when the camp barrels run dry. They were supposed to be gone 3 days. They returned in 1. But something was different. The first to notice were the horses. Even the war-hardened destriers, trained to ignore blood and screaming, began to buck and rear the moment the riders approached. One snapped its reins. Another simply sat down, refused to move, legs locked and eyes rolled wide. You watched as the scouts dismounted. Mouse didn't speak. Neither did the others. But they carried something in the middle of their little triangle. Something wrapped in a wet gray cloth, bound with leather cords, leaking muddy water and a smell you couldn't name. No one asked what it was first, but then came the dreams. That night, across the camp, the men stirred and muttered in their sleep. You could hear it like wind rustling pages too fast to read. One soldier screamed so loud his tent mates woke with bloody noses. Another bit through his own tongue and wept quietly, refusing to explain why. But you didn't dream, not once. Instead, you woke up 4 times in the same night with a dry throat and the distinct feeling that someone was standing at the flap of your tent, waiting. When you peeked through the slit, there was nothing, just a quiet camp, and the sound of horses, panicked and snorting, refusing to face one particular tent. Mouses. By morning, 2 more men had quietly packed up and left the Crusade, muttering something about false relics and the wrath of desert gods. And then, finally, someone tried to open the bundle. It was a priest, young, eager, new to the dust and the blood. He untied the cords without ceremony, chanting a psalm under his breath, bold as if he believed the words would shield him. The cloth fell away, and what lay inside wasn't bones, wasn't metal, wasn't even quite a statue. It was a form, vaguely human, smooth and pitted like river stone, but too soft, too damp, like it was grown rather than carved. No eyes, no mouth, only ridges where features should have been, and lines cut into its chest like a maze with no center, and a smell like old milk and dried roses. The moment the cloth slipped off, every horse in camp screamed. Not neighed, screamed. A sound that no beast should make. A sound like a memory you wish you never had. Men fell to their knees, clutching their heads. You saw Mouse across the clearing, pale, lips trembling. He was mouthing something, not prayers, numbers. The priest stepped back. He was crying. He whispered. It looked at me, but it hadn't moved. It never did. It just was. And that was too much. By dusk, the thing was buried in a pit near the latrines, 6 feet down, salt poured over it, a wooden sign hammered in upside down. Mouse hasn't spoken since. Not properly, only hums, low, repeating the same tune you don't recognize. At night, in his sleep, and the horses, they still won't go near the spot. They make wide circles around that corner of camp, eyes white, hooves slow. One tried to bolt during evening prayers, broke its own leg, had to be put down. You stand at the edge of the burial site sometimes, hand in your cloak, fingers brushing the rim of your dagger. You want to forget it. Everyone does. But some things don't rot. They just wait. And sometimes, when the wind blows from the east, the sand shifts in strange patterns, like fingers trying to crawl back up.
Of all the lowly jobs on this godforsaken campaign, perhaps none are lower than the latrine boy. He doesn't have a name, not one anyone remembers. They call him Piss Rat. You've seen him, scuttling around with that patchy cap too big for his head and boots stuffed with straw, always reeking of dung and ashes, always muttering. You assumed he was slow. You were wrong. He knows everything. Where the cook hides extra salt, where the French knight stashes his forbidden dice, who sleeps with whom, what really happened the night that tent caught fire. But most of all, he knows the layout beneath your feet, the trenches, the pits, the buried vaults older than Jerusalem itself. Because when you live among shit, you learn what the worms are whispering. It began one wet morning when the privies flooded. The whole section collapsed in a slurping suck of mud and stench. And there, sticking out of the muck like a tongue from a rotten jawbone, was parchment, waterlogged, faded, and stitched along one edge with red silk thread. Pissrat snatched it fast. No one noticed. No one ever notices him. He dried it under a spitfire, used chicken grease to soften the creases, hid it beneath his bedding of discarded tunics and rotten straw. And every night, by tallow light, he traced it with charcoal. You stumbled on him by accident, looking for a dry place to empty your bladder during a rain that would drown a fish. You lifted the flap of a collapsed tent and found him inside, sitting cross-legged like a priest, hunched over his parchment. He looked up, startled. Then he smiled, a cracked, toothless thing that made your stomach twist. "You want to see it?" he asked. "You'll owe me." You nodded. He unfolded it slowly, like it might scream, and there it was. Not just a map of the camp. No, a map of beneath, the tunnels, the burial trenches, the Roman aqueduct that the Templars had tried and failed to seal off. But there were other things, symbols that weren't Latin, names that weren't human, A square marked with a black stain labeled, "Don't look here." And in the bottom corner, a small sketch of a soldier sleeping, drawn in red, and next to it, a question. What happens when he dreams? You stared. He watched you. It changes, he whispered. Every time someone dies in the camp, a new mark appears. You just have to know how to see it. You leaned closer. You'll need something, he said, to see the fresh ink. What? He opened a small pouch at his side, pulled out a beetle, still alive, this carapace covered in a fine black dust. Smear it on your eyelids. You refused, of course, first. But 2 nights later, when the fires died early and half the camp woke to find their boots filled with water, despite no rain, you came back, and you let him smear it. The burning was immediate. Then came the flickering, and then the marks, glowing like embers across the parchment, shifting. The entire map moved. You saw your own tent, labeled Sleeper Number 38. Next to it, a small circle. No label, just a shape, curled, watching. You snapped back, blinked it away. Pissrat just grinned. It knows you now, he said. You looked too long. You left, shaking. But the worst part wasn't the map, or the beetle. It was the fact that 2 nights later your tent flap opened and no wind blew. And in the soft mud outside, a barefoot print, small, and facing inward. You wake up late, which is strange. The camp never sleeps past sunrise. The shouting, the clanking of pots, the clatter of hooves. It all begins before the sky even considers turning gray. But not today. Today there's silence and fog, thick as wool, heavy as sin. A white that isn't clean, but smothering, like milk left too long in a corpse's mouth. You sit up, feeling the damp already clinging to your hair. Your breath rises, barely visible against the overwhelming whiteness. You can't see your own boots by the end of the bedroll. No fires are lit, no orders barked. The fog presses against the canvas of your tent like a beast trying to get in. And then it begins. A voice. Hi, clear, female, singing. It doesn't make sense. There are no women in the camp, not since the laundresses were sent away after that scandal with the French captain and the bishop's page. But the voice persists, a lullaby of all things, soft, sweet, in a language that sounds like Latin but isn't, not quite. You rise, stepping outside into the pale silence. Figures move, shadows more than men, blurred and wrong. You pass someone standing still as a statue, his mouth open, eyes wide, head tilted like a broken puppet. He's listening to her. You hear your name, not from the singing, from beside you, a whisper directly into your ear. But there's no one there. Your breath catches. Another soldier stumbles out of the fog toward you, red-faced, shaking. Did you hear it? He asks. Did you see her? You shake your head, unsure. He grips your sleeve. I saw her mouth, he says. It didn't move right. The sound didn't come from there. It came from her eyes. You break away. You don't run. Not yet, because you're afraid to run in this fog. Afraid you'll find something faster than you. Instead, you move slowly toward the sound, because part of you needs to know, needs to see. Your foot hits something soft. You look down. It's a pile of robes. White, fine linen, much too fine for a soldier. Monastic. You recognize the stitching Cistercian. But the abbey that Crest belongs to is far from here, and long abandoned. The robe is wet. You lean down and see it's not dew. This blood, still warm. The singing grows louder, and now it's not one voice. It's two, a harmony, one just behind the other, slightly off-key. You remember something then, a rumor from weeks ago. A scribe gone missing after writing a hymn no one would sing. They said he was found wandering, eyes gouged, mouth stitched shut with thread soaked in wine. His song was burned. But someone must have remembered the tune. You reach the center of the camp. There is no center, only fog, and the sound. It circles you. You speak aloud, "Who's there?" And the singing stops, all at once, too quickly. The silence is sharper than the noise. Then a breath behind your left ear. Now you are. You turn. There's nothing. But when you blink, the fog clears a little, and you see shapes in the tents. Figures. Every single one facing the canvas wall. Still, listening, mouths wide. None of them are singing, but the sound starts again, and you realize it's coming from inside you. The rain returns with no warning. No thunder, no wind, just a sudden soft hiss, like the world drawing in a sharp breath through clenched teeth. It falls in sheets this time, cold, insistent, with that peculiar slap that only crusader rain seems to possess. It doesn't drench so much as invade, slipping between seams, down your collar, soaking your boots from the inside out. But you're not in your tent. You're walking, or rather drawn, feet moving, unthinking, along a trail that wasn't there yesterday. The mud squelches underfoot, deep and sticky, but something pushes you forward. The others don't follow. You glance back. The camp is gone. Only the rhythm of the rain remains, and a light, flickering yellow ahead, bobbing just above the ground, like a will-o'-the-wisp, but steadier, more purposeful. You follow it. What else would you do? The light leads you to the edge of a trench. You know it wasn't dug by engineers, too irregular, too soft. The kind of trench that comes from desperation, not strategy. A makeshift grave, and someone's digging. A figure hunched in the pit, moving with methodical slowness. Not shoveling, scooping. With hands, fingers. You call out, your voice dampened by the rain. The figure doesn't respond. Instead, he raises his head and you see his face. Old. So old you wonder how he's still upright. Beard like wet moss. Skin wrinkled like a map left in the sea. Eyes white. Not blind. Just used. He speaks without looking at you. Too many for the field. So we make room in the mud. You ask who he's burying. He chuckles. No one yet. He lifts something from the ground and places it in a canvas sack. You see it glisten. A rib. Fresh. You ask again, louder. Who is he? The man finally turns, and in his hand is a lantern. It shouldn't be burning. It's drenched, soaked through, and yet the flame dances merrily inside, casting long shadows. But it doesn't smell like oil. It smells like blood. The light pulses, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. You stare too long, and see within the glass, tiny face, pressed to the inside, mouth open in a silent scream. Then another, and another, tiny forms writhing in the flame, eyes wide, fingers clawing at the walls of their prison. The gravedigger holds it up proudly. They said to collect only the heads, but I keep the voices too. Your skin goes cold, colder than the rain. You step back. He frowns. I know you. You left the tent after the singing. That's not good. He climbs out of the grave with surprising speed. The mud doesn't cling to him, parts like it fears him. He approaches, lantern raised. You smell something else now, salt, like the sea, like old tears, like 100 confessions whispered into a bone. You try to step back again, but your feet sink. Deeper this time. You're in the trench. You didn't move, but here you are, and the earth is folding back in on itself. The old man kneels beside the grave, humming a low tune. Not Latin, not Christian, something older. Don't worry, he says. Only your sleep will be buried tonight. He lowers the lantern toward your chest. The light flickers and dims. The last thing you hear is his voice. This war forgets nothing, not even your dreams. Then everything goes dark, and somehow you keep hearing the flame. You awaken not to silence, but to clinking, metal against porcelain, forks scraping plates, the soft pop of lips smacking, the hum of chewing, the wet, rhythmic gulp of someone swallowing something they should have spat out. You're seated upright, not in mud, not in your tent, but at a table, a long, impossibly long table, stretching so far into darkness on either end that it seems to coil like a serpent. The wood beneath your fingers is warm, too warm, and faintly sticky. When you lift your hand, a sheen of something reddish follows. The table is set with precision. Goblets of tarnished silver, candlesticks that burn but don't melt, and plates piled high with meat. You don't recognize the cut. It's pale, stringy, slightly blue, trembles when you breathe on it. Around you, the guests eat without pause, but none have faces. Each head is wrapped tightly in linen, like a burial shroud, knotted behind the skull. No eye holes, no mouths, just the rhythmic motion of jawlines pushing beneath the fabric, wet noises escaping from beneath the cloth. No one speaks, but every now and then one of them laughs. A short, muffled burst like someone choking on a joke they weren't supposed to hear. You rise slightly, enough to see that you're not bound. But you can't leave. Your legs tremble. Your spine locks. The candlelight thickens around you like syrup. Your body does not belong to you here. A man enters from the far side of the room, if you can call him a man. He's tall, too tall, and narrow like someone stretched through a wine press. His robes drag behind him, stitched from dozens of tattered standards, Saracen and Crusader alike. His face is uncovered, but there's nothing there. Not blank, not scarred, simply absent, as if the space between his ears had never learned to be a face. He moves without stepping, sliding between the chairs, trailing his fingers across shoulders as he passes. You try not to flinch when he touches yours. Too late. He pauses behind you. You feel breath, or something like breath, trickle across the back of your neck. "This is the table of forgotten treaties," he murmurs. "Every course is a compromise, every guest a broken promise." You manage to ask, in a voice not entirely your own, "What are they eating?" He leans close. The candlelight bends around him. "Memory." He lifts the lid of the nearest silver dish. Inside your tent, his canvas walls soaked in blood, your bedroll shredded, your pack still laced with the faint scent of lavender oil you once received from a merchant monk outside Tripoli. The linen-wrapped guest beside you shoves a spoonful into its cloth-covered mouth and shudders with delight. You want to scream, but your jaw is heavy. The tall man snaps his fingers, and a goblet is placed before you. The liquid inside glows softly, a pale gold, like honey mixed with candle wax and regret. "Drink," he says. "You must forget to sleep again." You stare into the cup and see yourself. Not the self from moments ago, but the self you might become if you never leave this place. Eyes hollow, skin drawn, smiling politely at a meal you never ordered. The tall man waits. Everyone does. The feast pauses. Forks still. Chewing halts. Even the candle flames freeze in mid-flicker. The whole room waits for you to drink. You tip the cup. But instead of liquid, a voice pours into your mouth. It's yours. You're reciting something. Prayer. From weeks ago. The one you muttered under your breath during the ambush in the pass. The one you never finished. It tastes of metal and fear and crushed time. And then the table vanishes. You fall backward, through linen, through candlelight, through the memory of meals you never ate, and land in mud again. The stars return, but they're wrong, out of place, tilted, watching, and the feast follows you in your breath, in your gut. You can still feel the fork. You've stopped asking how long the night has lasted. The rain still taps the tent, but softer now, as if afraid to disturb what's inside. Outside, the other men have long since stopped talking. No snores, no coughing, no prayers, just silence, and something else. Breathing, not yours, not theirs. It doesn't match any rhythm you've known. Too slow to be human, too heavy to be wind, too steady to be accidental. It begins only when you close your eyes. Not immediately. That would be too easy. It waits. It lets your body sink. Your mind begin to unravel. The muscles behind your knees soften and forget. And then it starts. H-H-H-H-H. H-H-H-H-H. It isn't outside. It isn't inside. It's between. Somewhere in the thin space where air becomes thought. Where sleep is just beginning to win, and your body forgets what real is. You've tried sitting up, pretending to adjust your gear, your blanket, your sword belt, but nothing is ever there. Still, the moment you lie back down, you feel it again. The sense of being studied, not just watched. No, this thing isn't merely looking. It's learning. It is memorizing the curve of your neck, the precise weight of your breath, the slow twitch in your left foot when you start to dream. Tonight, you finally try something different. You don't sleep. You pretend to sleep. Practiced breathing. A soldier's trick. Even your heartbeat slows. You lie still. The thing is patient. You feel the air in the tent shift. And then, without warning, the breath is beside your cheek. So close you can taste its dryness. Dust, old sweat, pine resin, charcoal, burned meat, and something familiar. You try not to react. It sniffs. Once, twice, then a third time, longer. It knows. Your eyes are closed, but your vision pulses with pressure, like something vast hovering just inches away. You imagine it. No, you sense it. The curve of a hunched back, bones clicking as they lean in, the hiss of old fabric dragging across your bedroll. Then you hear it speak, but not out loud. Climbs into your thoughts. You dream too loudly, it says. Even silence has its rules. Your mind convulses. Something inside you recoils like an organ trying to hide. This war, it continues, is older than the one your blade was forged for. Older than Jerusalem. Older than Rome. You feel your memories crackle under its touch. It's not just watching you, it's digging. Through your regrets, your failures, your longing for home. You clench your fists. The thing laughs, a sound like bones scraping bronze. Yes, it says. You remember the girl, the storm, the prayer unanswered. You open your eyes, and there's nothing, just the sagging tent, the scattered gear, the cold air. But something is missing, not added, taken. You feel lighter, no hollow. You touch your chest. Your heartbeat is there, but wrong, as if a part of it is now echoing elsewhere. You check your pack, your weapons, your skin, all intact, but not your thoughts. Something is gone. You won't know what until it tries to use it against you. And it will, because tonight you were tested, and you passed, barely. But the thing isn't angry. It's curious, and it's not gone. It's just moved deeper inside the folds of your story, waiting, smiling, remembering everything you've already forgotten. It is the final night, not because the war is over, not because the road is safe, not even because you have won, but because you know, deep in the marrow of your weary bones, that you will not sleep here again. The storm is gone. The ground, for once, does not weep beneath your bedroll. But the stillness outside is not peace. It is pause. You sit alone in your tent, boots off, sword nearby, though you won't be needing it tonight. The others are quiet, but not from fear. They've stopped dreaming. The men who marched with you are no longer the same. Some of them were swallowed by mud, some by arrows, some by silence. And you? You were swallowed by the waiting. You stretch your hand toward the canvas above, trace the seams with one finger. So many holes, so many nights the rain has passed through, down your chest, into your soul. This tent has held your heat, your breath, your tears. It has heard your curses, caught your blood. It knows the names you whispered in fever when no one else was listening. Tonight, it will listen one last time. You lie back. You don't close your eyes. Instead, you listen, not for the wind, not for the beast between sleep and bone, but for something older. The reason you came here, it wasn't glory. It wasn't God. It was the longing to find a place where the world made sense. It never did, and it never will. But in this moment, under the sagging roof of stitched wool and memory, you make peace with that. You finally understand. The tent was never your shelter. It was your mirror. And as your breath slows, as your limbs grow heavier, as the dark begins to melt into your vision, not sharply, but tenderly, you realize you are not the soldier who arrived here. You are the story that remained, a tale carried on damp wind, a ghost in rusting mail, a whisper among olive groves, where children will one day play and never know what happened beneath their feet. And in the final moment, just as your thoughts begin to dissolve, you dream one last time, not of battles, not of death, but of a dry, warm place with a feather bed and clean linen, and a face at the door you thought you'd forgotten, smiling, welcoming, home.